We fired that till we ran out of ammunition. And about that time, I think my captain hollered up, he says, "We need ammunition." He said, "I'm calling on the radio and I'm getting no response." He said, "We have to get somebody to physically go back and get it." And there's only one road going out of that pass, and it was on constant fire, you know. So I said, well, I might as well go. So I jumped in the Jeep and I took off, and I went back to the company that was in reserve. This is what they call a weapons carrier. It was full with ammunition. I mean, high explosive, armor piercing and everything. It was already loaded, and the guy was right there sitting there at the truck. I said, "Oh man, God bless you. Let's take this thing there." He says, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't move." So what do you mean you can't move? I said, "Guys are going up there and shot. This is important." So I said, "Well, I'll take it." He said, "You cannot have this vehicle." And I hate to tell you this, but I put my rifle up. I said, "You're going one way or the other."
Welcome to Triumphant Spirit, America's World War II Generation Speaks. This program is a series of broadcasts featuring the stories of a generation that fought and won the Second World War. No matter how they fought the war or where, on the home front or the battlefield, each veteran featured on the program contributed valiantly to a victory that changed the 20th century. Here are their stories in their own words. They are stories of actions and deeds that not only helped shape the outcome of the war, but the very world we live in today. After North Africa, you were then involved in the Italian campaign. Can you describe what happened in Italy?
Yeah, we pulled back as far as Bizerta. We went all the way up to Bizerta, and then we waited, and they were starting the Sicilian campaign. And we were starting to get refitted and all of other stuff, and they were going to go over there. We were all getting ready, but they didn't pick my outfit. In fact, they were deciding to pick my outfit to go to southern France for D-Day. But there was another outfit that, luck of the draw, well, they went. But they did take a lot of anybody who had combat experience. They asked me if I wanted a battlefield commission. Of course, after this capturing pass, they made me a sergeant in the field. And they asked me if I wanted if I wanted to be an officer. And we had 3 or 4 of my buddies that went, and unfortunately, they went to D-Day and they all got killed. I mean, it's unfortunate. And they were guys, 2 of them were 2 of my high school buddies from high school.
Jim, these were individuals that did take a direct commission?
Yep.
And were involved in the invasion of southern France?
D-Day, and then we found out that they got killed. It's unfortunate. But so we stayed in Bizerta. From Bizerta, we waited. After the Sicilian campaign, we went to Italy, and we actually landed in Naples. And we landed in Naples, and we were taking up different positions along the way. And I forgot to tell you, in Africa, I just want to bring out this one point about Africa. I was always interested in explosives. So I started to take an anti-personnel mine apart by the book. And some guy ran in and told the captain. We had to go through a combat course. This is the first combat course I ever went through. You know where they put the barbed wire up and you crawl and the guy shoots a machine gun over your head?
After all that you experienced, you're now going through a combat course.
Through a combat course. This is in Africa. We're going through a combat course. And my buddy, you know what they do? As you're going through the combat course, they have like a ditch, pretty big ditch. And he gets a quarter of a pound of TNT. He puts a fuse. He rolls it down there so you feel what the impact of the ground starts to shake when you're going. And when they don't light them with a match, they have what they call a fuse. It's a striker. He just pulls it out. It lights the fuse. He gets it like this and he rolls it down. So the colonel told me, he says, you're taking too long. He's cut the fuses shorter. So when you fool with a fuse and the powder gets loose, instead of having a delay, the thing went off and cut his arm off. Cut it right off the wrist. And you know, the guy never bled much, but he held his wrist, and I don't want to tell you what he said, tell that colonel. But after that, he says, I've been asking to go to mines and demolition school. You don't want to send me. So then I took this mine apart, and they caught me taking the mine apart by the book. He said, pack your bag. You are leaving now. And they sent me to a place called Fez in Spanish Morocco. I was there for a month, and I went with the British. If you think the Americans are crazy, the British are worse. Nothing bothers them. They have a bomb going off, or they're going to have their tea over here. Then nothing bothers them. So I went through that whole school from 5th Army, but most of them were British, but there was a few of us Americans, and they teach you all the different type of anti-personnel and any kind of explosive and how to deactivate them and stuff like that. So it was a whole month. So it was a long time. It was like a vacation. I mean, the food was good. There was no fighting, and we're up in this town of Fez. They all spoke Spanish, but it was all right, Spanish and French. So then I went back to my outfit, and then from Africa, we went into, of course, I was still a Fort observer, too, you know. That's what I say on the beach.
So you had two qualifications,
yeah.
One, demolitions expert,
Yeah.
number two, Fort observer.
I was a Fort observer.
So you rejoined your outfit in Naples.
Yep.
What happened after you joined
in
the
Naples,
outfit?
we had some different places that we were going and stuff like that, and I still was doing Fort observing, you know what I mean? And it was different things that happened, and we finally wound up near Monte Cassino, where the monastery was. And I remember the name of the hill was Mount Chisvaro, where we were, and I could see the monastery up at the top, and we were down like in this little town. And what we'd do, we'd send patrols out. We'd pick out different guys, and they'd go out and they'd patrol, make contact, and come back. You know what I mean?
Jim, could you describe Monte Cassino for our audience? You know what you saw, but I would appreciate if you let the audience know what Monte Cassino was really like.
Monte Cassino was a beautiful sight up there, very majestically sitting like on top of a real high cloud up there.
A monastery
Just
on
the
top
monastery
of a mountain.
on top
Right.
of there. And it was, and you could see you see the puff of smoke from a gun every once in a while coming up, artillery. And one day, I hear this tremendous drone, and I look up, it's American flying fortresses coming over, and I was just looking at them like that, and they're going over, all of a sudden, they start bombing the monastery. They dropped all their bombs. They didn't miss. They dropped everything right in there.
Now, why did they bomb the monastery, Jim?
Well, because the Germans were supposed to be holed up in there, and they were using it as a stronghold. And they were higher, and they could shoot right down a valley at you, you know. So that was, we were at the monastery, and all of a sudden, they said, we're going to get a couple of days off or something like that. So instead of a couple of days off, we come down, and they got cleaned up and everything, and we got on the ship. We said, where are we going? We said, we're going to Anzio. So we went out, and they had some preliminary stuff, what you gonna do. Now, I never went over the side of a boat, because we had, these guys were like tank destroyers, so all the loose guys like me that had a rifle and did security stuff, so to speak, that we went over and we got in that boat and we hit the beach. And the worst part of the whole thing was the ship behind us was a rocket ship. And these rocket ships, the rockets were like on platforms that go, you know, like you see like firecrackers going off. Hey, watch it. So what they did, now I realize why they were at a certain angle, because they all fired them, and that would give them the elevation of firing they had to clear the beach. They did such a good job where we hit our beach. We had very, very little resistance. But what they do with them boats, you climb down over there, and you got in the boat, and you went out there, and you went around, you went around, you went around, till all of a sudden, some guy went like this. So everybody that was in these barges, or whatever you want to call them, boats.
Landing craft.
Landing craft, and we hit the beaches.
At Anzio.
At Anzio. We hit a good beach. We didn't hit hardly, not where Micro hit. We didn't hit too much resistance, and we went in and right into Anzio, and we had to do some marching again. And just as we got in there, they started to withdraw.
The Germans.
The Germans started to withdraw. And we went back in further, and we set up positions again. And as we set up these different positions.
Your responsibility right now was as a forward observer.
I was a forward observer.
Forward observer with the 805th.
805th Tank Destroyer.
Where was the tank destroyer located?
Well, what they did, what happened in Africa, because we lost so many guns, they gave us 3-inch towed guns, and these towed guns, being it's a flat trajectory weapon that fires so fast and all, they set them up there and they used them like for artillery, and they had them dug in, they put camouflage on, and of course my job was a forward observer. And I think I spent 39 days on this one OP by myself. They used to bring me food though. I mean, it couldn't have been too bad. And they bring me food up. A guy had to crawl up at night because Anzio was very flat. And the only building that was there that had got blown up was where I was. I had a BC scope. A BC scope is a scope you look in here, goes up here, and then goes out like that. Not like a telescope or a periscope, but you can stay down here, look up in here, and you can see. And you got accustomed that I could pick out a spot, and I would put that in my memory, and I'd look at that spot every day. If that spot changed, I know there was some kind of activity over there, but they'd bring me food up. But they knew I was there because, you know, we had some, they call them sensing. You know, you see something, you call ahead for a fire mission, and you call in for a fire mission, they lay down whatever they're trying to do. And
when you say they, that's the artillery battalion?
The artillery and my Tank Destroyer Battalion. And we're attached to some FDC Fire Direction Center that computes the distances and stuff like that. I don't know how they do that, but they do it pretty good. But this one day they were shelling that thing, and they shelled right in front. They were dropping all these mortars, and a mortar fell in. I'm behind a wall now, but a piece of shrapnel still come around and hit me right underneath my eye. And you know what burned me more, because it's still hot from the explosion? It burnt me, stuck me right under here, and I said, boy, and I picked that out. And the only thing that gets me mad is that I lost that piece. I was keeping it as a souvenir. And I don't know where the hell I lost it, but, you know, I was lucky. And then we got out of there. Where did we go from Anzio?
Jim, one of the medals in front of you is a Purple Heart. Now, you were wounded twice at Anzio.
Right.
You really should have 2 Purple Hearts. However, you described your first incident, and in reality, there was no Purple Heart awarded for that. But there was a Purple Heart awarded for the second time you were wounded. Can you describe that?
Yeah, I got caught up in an explosion, and this shell hit pretty close to this gun position, and a couple of us got knocked down, and I busted my eardrums, and I couldn't hear. And so I spent that time I spent, I guess, about 3 weeks in the hospital on Anzio. But that was bad because the ammunition dump was over here, and they were coming over and missing the ammunition dump. They were hitting the hospital. The only thing we had was these sandbags between each bunk, and that's a tent.
So you never really were out of harm's way?
No, it's not. That wasn't. I couldn't wait to get back to my outfit.
Did you and your outfit ever get off the beach at Anzio?
We finally got off the beach at Anzio, and where did we move to? I guess then we started going up towards Rome, I guess, that way. And And we'd pick up different spots. And of course, again, we'd move into a position. See, we were attached to a division. We were what they call, you might have heard that term, a bastard battalion. We didn't belong to anybody. The division moved up. They stayed there for 30 days, 40 days. The division moved back. My outfit never moved back. We were always on the line, always constantly dug in. We were always doing something. And it was, I'm trying to get all this stuff into perspective. You know, sometimes it's pretty tough to remember. I remember the one place that I was on the OP, and there was like a railroad trestle that I had focused, and these two Germans would walk back and forth there every day. A guy would behind with his hand behind him. He had the swagger stick there, and then kind of been a couple of generals look around. So I want to call for a fire mission. You can't call for a fire mission for two people, you know. So I don't know what happened. But a lot of stuff goes on and on. And I'm going to bring up something about...
Well, do you remember the capture of Rome? Were you at Rome?
Yes.
Can you describe that?
Well, on the way up to Rome, you know, we only traveled once in the daytime, and we really got strafed, and we were getting really strafed. And these ME-109s were coming down like this. These pilots were really good. They came down there like this.
These are German planes, Messerschmitt 109.
Messerschmitt 109. They came down, and they'd go like this, and then he'd like a barrel roll. They'd come back and get the front of the column, you know. And the guy that was in front of me, and you're supposed to keep contact with everybody, and I passed this guy out, and I seen there was a machine gun. I said, what's the matter? You guys got to be crazy? I thought he was firing at me, but it was this Messerschmitt. He kicked up all the dust in front of me. You see the bullets go, you know, it's that fast. And I stood up, and if I would have stood in that Jeep when I put my rifle up, I think I could have hit the undercarriage of that ME-109. These guys were really good. I mean, the guy was a great pilot. And we got out of there, so then we get out of we had to get out of there, and we get down under a viaduct just going into Rome. So I said to one of my buddies, there's a house up on top of the hill. I said, let's go up there and see something. He said, what? Well, they have a couple of chickens up there. They're all gone. There's nobody around. So, you know, we just cook them and used to put them in the helmet, cook them, you know, stuff like that. So the guy said, I ain't going up there. I said, So I go up the road. I figured there's nothing going on. I come around the bend in the road. As soon as I come in the bend in the road, I come face to face with this German soldier. He's got the rifle pointing right at my head. And I don't know what I was thinking.
This is the second time you've been taken POW.
And he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him. He's looking at me, I'm looking at him. And I figured if I go for my gun, because I had a carbine with me and I had a pistol, he's going to shoot me. He's going to get nervous and shoot me. But anyhow, he put the rifle down by his feet. He put his hands up and gave up. So I went up to him, and he looked like he was about 17 or 18 years old, tall, skinny young man with blonde hair, glasses. So then I went in the house to see if there's anything else. And he had a machine gun pointing right down that road. He could have shot me anytime. 4 or 5 hand grenades with them, like them potato mashers. Had a thing full of jam. It looked like he didn't even eat. I don't think he was there too long. A loaf of black bread. And I think they just left him there as a rear guard action. He was glad to get captured, I think. And then I took him back and I said to my lieutenant, Lieutenant, you ain't gonna believe this. I said, but this guy followed me. He said, what do you mean he followed you? I said, well, he followed me, and I tried to tell him. And it's a long story, tried to get rid of him. I said, well, I can't do, but anyhow, they took him prisoner. Took the guy prisoner.
Jim, when you were in Italy, you were awarded the Bronze Star, and that's another medal that's sitting in front of you. Can you explain the circumstances under which you earned the Bronze Star? Well, and I will show a picture of General Keyes awarding you that star.
What happened is that I was in the tower at a place called Marina di Pisa, and the Tower of Pisa was behind me, and I could look around, and The Germans were in the tower, but I was out on a point. Right in front of me was the Arno River. The Mediterranean Sea was over here. And we were up there about 80 feet. And I could actually see guys when they're dropping a mortar in there. And, I guess you get a little wacky. And I'd put my phone up and I'd say, well, here comes another one. I put the phone up and some guy down there says, you're trying to break my eardrums. I said, now you know how it feels to be up in here. And he was getting close. One day he did hit the church and he put a big hole because, they have the graveyard and the church and stuff like that. And one big shell come up and hit the wall and skidded and never exploded. And the shell laid right down. When we had to get out of that tower, come all the way down there, I said, don't go off now. I had to step over this shell, about 3 foot long, about like this. But it was amazing. And of course, the reason we stayed up there because I was the highest point around. And there's a sniper used to shoot at me every day. And I thought the guys were down there fooling around in the cemetery. Because, guys are in the Army, go messing around. Guy said, Sergeant, we ain't shooting up there. You're not. So I said, where's it coming from? So anyhow, I get a call from I had about 6 phones up there, by the way. I had one from the British and one from the Americans. I had a tank outfit, and I don't know who the rest of them was. Their phone would ring, and it says, hello, old Choppy. How you doing? He says, there's a sniper shooting at you. I said, I know. He said, we located, and we're going to drop a shell on his blooming head. He said, do you mind? I said, no, I don't mind. So, but these Germans were behind the trees. I was so high, I could actually see the guy dropping the shell in the mortar, and I could follow the trajectory because the increments in the back, you'd see like the flame come up like a small rocket, and you could follow it where it was going. And that's when I cursed on the airways, and I said that they were trying to kill me. Some guy said, please do not use the airways profanity. I said a few other things. He says, you're talking to this general, someone. Hey, General. I said, I can't help that. That's the way things are. 2 or 3 days later, still in this tower. This is before we got this other thing. This guy comes up there, and he wants to know all the things the targets that were picked out. As you pick out and you fire by grid coordinates. You don't fire. It's not Main Street or whatever it is, And then when you zero in, you mark that in your book, concentration 1, concentration 2, whatever it may be. This guy walks up there with a map, this general. He says, I'm General so-and-so. Hiya, General. And I said, see the white of your map? There's a sniper that shoots at me every day. You know why I'm sitting down here on my butt behind this here stone wall? I said, I don't want to get killed. Boom! He sat down so fast, and then he didn't bother with me. Then the next day, first sergeant comes up there and he says, show me where you can see that guy putting the mortars in. He says, you're up there. He says, you're talking like it's a show. I said, well, it's like a show because I can see the shells going off. If they don't hit you, you're lucky, right? And if you're not lucky, c'est la vie. So anyhow, he says, just some movement over there. I said, where? And that time I had a 30 power scope. And he's looking through maybe a little opening in the trees about this big. And the activity was there, and I had that place zeroed in. I remember it was concentration 3. It was zeroed in, and all these Germans were coming down the road, and they were dumping all these ammunition boxes and stacking them up. You could see the color was blue on them, whatever that stood for, I don't know. And they were coming down there, and I said, get down, and I grabbed the phone and hollered, fire mission, fire mission. I says, concentration 3, must be like a company of Germans coming down. And I said, well, fire one gun. What you used to do, fire one gun, and they'd adjust on that. He said, we're firing the company. And my other phone rang, and the British call up and says, Sergeant, give me the grid coordinates. And I gave him the grid coordinates, and there was another tank outfit, I forget who it was, or artillery outfit. And when they hollered fire, they all fired, and they were knocking down trees. Guys were getting picked up, and it was like, well, I'm standing up there cheering because, they're doing a great job. 2 days later, I hear this clank, 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 and I'm laying down because I used to sleep up there. It was pretty good. Them walls are like this thick, And I'm sleeping up there, and I heard this clank, clank, clank. Just as I stick my head up there, I heard this bang, and this guy is shooting at this tower. I can see this German pull up a self-propelled gun. I can see him putting a shell in the gun, the guy pulling the lanyard. I could see the fire coming out. He hit the building, and then I heard the bang. Boy, you sure heard me cussing then on the phone. Then we had to get out of there, because if he'd have put a shell up there, if he'd just raised it up, I think he hit it, I said he hit it 14 out of 15 shots. And when the other guy that was with me, he says he only hit it 7 or 8. I said, well, who's counting? But on the way down, they had like these stone windows, and the guy almost put a shell right in the window, but he hit the concrete, and the concrete shattered, and I was going down there. I said to the lieutenant, I said, God, I feel something wet. And he says, oh, you're bleeding a little bit. I said, yeah, I'm bleeding a little bit. I got a nick right across my thing. I didn't even know I got hit.
And that's the third time you were wounded in battle.
That's the third time. So I'm going down there, I'm getting down there, and he says, you're not going to put in for a Purple Heart for that. I said, all right, forget about it. So I didn't do it. So the following day, things quiet down. So I get this one kid and myself, that's one of the guys with me. And we sat on the steps at a church. We're sitting there, and they start laying in the barrage. And they lit it, and we're eating these K rations out of the box, and a shell landed across the road 100 feet away or something like that. And I don't know, you drop everything, and you bend your head, and you go like this, you cover your face. And when the shrapnel went over this, it put holes in the church door and in the concrete like you wouldn't believe. So I said to my buddy, "Phew, boy, was that close?" He said, "Yeah, was it close?" So I went down to pick up my K ration. Man, there's a big pile of blood down there. I said, one of us hit. So I get up, I said, well, it ain't me, it must be you. This guy didn't even know he had a hole over here by his ankle, right through his boot like. And he said, Sergeant, I'm going to die. You're not going to die. I said, you're all right. I've got the blood, so you got to put pressure and elevate it. I said, you're going to be all right. Oh, Sergeant, I'm going to die. He says, I'm going to put your foot down, you're going to bleed to death, and you're going to die. You better quit crying, because you're going to die. And he says to me, you wouldn't do that to me. I said, well, shut up, you're going home. And I got to stay here. He said, what do you mean? I said, you got we used to call them $1 million wounds. You got $1 million wounds, and I got to stay here? I says, you're going home. I says, this is not fair. It should have been me. And he says, I'm going home, huh? Yeah. So they tell you that a person will go into shock, and you got to do anything to drag him out of it. Because a shock is worse than a wound, and that can do more serious damage. But anyhow.
Jim, your generation sacrificed a great deal during World War II. What do you feel your legacy happens to be, the legacy of your generation?
Well, I don't look at like I think that everybody was a collective thing. I think that everybody did everything that they could and to help out, because it was stemmed from the fact, I think, that they bombed Pearl Harbor, and we all got angry, and we wanted to fight. We didn't want to fight before, but after Pearl Harbor, it did something to the way you're thinking, that you wanted to destroy somebody, and that was the enemy, and everybody that was against you was the enemy, regardless of who they were. And that's the only way that I can think about it, I don't think I did, or anybody did anything. We all did it. Everybody helped.